was just the two of us doing surveillance stuff. And
how did he get killed?
Round. Kind of sucked, man. We got made. We were pretty low profile, thought we were pretty good, but as we were leaving this neighborhood, one of the lookout type bad guys or whatever definitely made us, man. He did the double take, and it was like we got slowed down as we passed him, and it was like, oh shit, like we're made. And made the call. Hey guys, just FYI guys, we're compromised. We're RTBing, returning to base. All's cool. We pull out, went up, made a U-turn, and this dude comes running out with an RPG. And I'm already on the gas. I was driving. And probably 55, 65 mile an hour. And RPG. And I swerved right into it. Took it in the hood, took it in the grill. That made the steering not work. And we went into one of those big metal light posts,
Yeah.
And the median was like this tall up in that wham. And, of course, on all those vehicles, we had the airbags disabled and all that kind of stuff. And I ate the steering wheel pretty good and was dazed and confused. And my guy's like, wake up, man, wake up. And get together. And he's like, we got to go that way. Roger. Yep. Hard pointing over there. Got it. And it's like, ready. Let's go. Pop the doors. And, I moved around to the hood and started giving the guys and they were pot-shotting us at this point. They weren't 100% sure what they were dealing with. And so the bad guys, it's 3 lanes and then, so full 6 lanes there of road. And then the sidewalk and then kind of an alleyway that they were kind of, shooting at us from. And it didn't take much to back them up. They were just real uncertain with what they were dealing with. You know what I mean? They're like, what are these guys? You know what I mean? They knew that big bearded dudes in Humvees and MRAPs were not to be messed with. Those are scary guys. But they didn't know what we were in this sedan. They're like, what the? So anyway, it didn't take me but a few rounds into that fight to realize he had not come around the other side of the vehicle. Yeah. And I'm like, I just kind of looked and I could see his legs still in the car. His door was open. So I ran around there and he was done. The round that went through him hit me in the back. And the only reason I know it was that round is because I had blood on my back. And I had no other time in this fight that I could have gotten blood on my back. The round went through him and hit me right in the back plate. So I ran around and grabbed him, and he had a Mark 46, and I'm dragging him, and as I round the car, his foot catches the muffler, because I rounded the corner a little too short, and so I slipped and fell. So he's in my lap, and I'm looking, and here comes these dudes. They're like, oh, opportunity. So I'm just like, trying to give him a little love, push him back a little bit. I get back up, turn around, and, with his grabbing his armor and ran. Had to drag him over that median, which he was all hung up on. Across the lanes. There's traffic, man. There's people. And bullets are flying and, like, people. You know how, like,
yeah.
And just, sometimes people would scatter in fights in Iraq, and sometimes they would just go on about their business.
Yeah.
Like, gunfight, people. Leave.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to drag through traffic and stuff, and not a lot of traffic, just a couple cars in my way trying to get to this one little, storefront. And as I'm pulling him up on the daggone sidewalk on the other side of the road, I slipped and fell again. And at this point, I pulled up his saw and went on like a 200-round burst. I shot almost an entire drum with like 3 bursts, just figure eighting. And that was very helpful because now all of a sudden these dudes and they've got a couple of their buddies that ain't fighting anymore, so I was doing okay. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm still okay. My buds are on the way, right? My buds have got to be on the way by now, right? I've been asking for help, contact, asking for help. They know. It wasn't until 3 or 4 buildings later that I realized I had also been shot in my fucking emitter.
Oh.
I'm talking on a radio that doesn't work. And I left my cell phone on a Velcro patch on the dash of the car.
Shit.
So now I got no comms. And like I said, I'm still talking on the radio, asking for help, and, trying to give updates on my movements and stuff. And I get him in, and the store owner basically, in English, asked me, can I help you? And I'm like, please just leave. Just get out of here, bro. And so he took off, and I rolled up this dude in a carpet and stuck him underneath the stairwell. And I tossed a PDM in the doorway. For folks that don't know, a PDM is a pursuit deterrent munition. It's a little mine, if you will, that you pull a string or pull a pin on it, and I can't remember, 6 or 8 wires pop out of it, little trip wires. And so when someone comes after you, they trip it, it goes off, and ideally deters them from pursuing you. Pursuit deterrent munition. And threw one in the doorway, took a couple more shots, took off, and started bounding back, right? I took everything that I could off of him, his pistol mags. He didn't have any AR mags. And he had like a 100-round nut sack. It's a smaller sack for the saw. I took a saw, land for at this point, I'm like, okay, right? I'm going to get up on the roof, make a call. Helicopters will be here in a minute. And so I went up on the roof, and it was a flat roof with no knee walls. Had my VS-17 panel out, and that is when I discovered my radio was making a lot of. It had some rattly pieces, and what it was, those radio holders that you fold down, like hinged. I was like, man, I must be on the wrong net. Something's wrong. So I'm like, I'm going to a different net, and I opened that up, and it was like, and I was like, shit. The screen was blank. Funny thing was, that AK round is still in that embedder. I have it at home. I still have the radio. And that AK round is in the embedder. It did not go through and hit my plate.
Wow.
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Our radios are ballistic, or at least in this case, mine was. Stupid stuff, right? I left my VS-17 panel on the roof because I started taking fire. And I was like, ooh. I jumped off the roof. It was like, basically, the roof I was on, second story, first story roof that was like this, but wasn't here. When I got up there, I didn't make a mental note that that part of the roof didn't exist. So I went running and jumped off thinking I was going to land on this and missed. All the way to the dirt, dude. 2 stories, And I was just like, oh my God, that hurt. Whew, got myself together. And I remember as I stood up, dude came running around the corner, like, maybe double the distance me and you. And I'm like on my knees, I'm starting to get up, and I look, and he runs, and he looks right through me. He's mid-20s. Looks, and takes off. And I'm like, his buddy runs up behind him, keeps going past the little alleyway, and I hear him hitting the brakes. He saw me out of the peripheral vision, and he came back and poked his head around the corner. So I dumped him. His buddy sees it happening, and I start to move to the corner, and we almost run into each other. He comes hauling ass around the corner, freaking, and I'm like, it was kind of weird because it was like, pow, and he hits my muzzle and like kind of like pushed him out of the way with it.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest shit. Back up, went in the building. So I was like, I need to stay off the streets. And it was getting to the point now, right, where like, I'm okay, you need to manage your ammo. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? No one knows where you're at. No one knows this is happening. Crap, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to the river. Haji can't swim. If I can get to the river, I'll swim down south, freaking get out of the river and walk to the freaking airbase. I'll be fine. That was my best plan I had come up with. And it was not a bad plan. It would have worked had I ever gotten to the river. And so this goes on. This is June. It's hot. And I don't have any water. I got bad enough, probably about just over an hour into this, that I drank water out of a sink in Iraq. And I was like, well, hopefully I'll be home before this kicks in. Like, I knew I was going to have the shits, right? I was like, well, but I was bad dehydrated. And lesson learned there, Camelback on your body armor. I found like a 1 liter Camelback, and I put it in my back plate, in my body armor in the back as a reserve, emergency. I wouldn't drink off of it. It was only there for an emergency. It would have been nice to have that day. I never had to really use it since. That's the problem with lessons learned. They always apply to that thing, and then it never happens again. Shit. But anyway, still have that Camelback still in my back plate. But as I got less and less ammo, when I went inside, I transitioned to my pistol. All said and done, man. Well, I got to the marsh, and a Kiowa screamed by me, and I was like, please don't shoot me. And he looked. They were looking for me.
No shit.
My guys knew. Right? I was supposed to be home. No, we didn't hit the tracker or nothing. We had the Blue Force trackers. I get shot up, and I was dazed and confused. And then my partner gets shot. You know what I mean? Blue Force tracker. Didn't think of hitting it.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought about it.
I didn't know if it was on the whole time or, Did the RPG...
So they found it, right? Because, the Blue Force trackers emit all the time, but I didn't hit the emergency. So they knew IVO, right? They knew in vicinity of. And, but I mean, I'm at least an hour and a half now. And the guys had come, my guys were out looking, and they had gone and got the ODA. I think it was a 7th Group ODA. So everybody was out looking for me. They just weren't sure where. And so they were getting little ticks as well. And they could hear the gunfire, they said, here and there, but gunfire in Iraq?
Yeah. Very common.
Right. I was managing my ammo, man. I was no shit. Using my pistol inside and switching a rifle outside. I threw 2 PDMs. Both of them went off. I heard them both go off, and I just laughed. I was like, hell yeah. They're not very devastating. Like, the reality is if a PDM went off right here between us, it probably wouldn't kill either one of us. They have less explosive in them than a frag grenade. And, but I remember hearing them both going off, and I just laughed. I was like, yeah, motherfuckers. Like, y'all are going to kill me today, but I ain't going alone, And that's kind of where I was at. I was like, man, I just don't know if I'm going to get out of this one. And I never got riled up or any of that stuff. It's just like, I don't know, just keep, as they show themselves, I'll shoot them. And long story short, man, I got to the marsh, and that Kiowa screamed over, and man, he hard banked it, freaking up, settled back down, came right up on top of me, and freaking waved, and I was like, I just kind of sat down in the marsh. It was sitting on my butt. It was about head high, but I could see. And he sat there for a minute and kind of pulled off just a little bit. And have you ever heard the 50 cals on the Kiowas? They're not like boom, 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 boom. They're like, they're turned up. Their cyclate rate of fire is totally different than the ones we put on the Humvees. And I had never heard one before. And he's right there. And he's just like,
man, I have not heard that.
Yeah, I was like, what has he got? It's a 50 cal, but they're just much higher, almost double the rate of fire. Those are the ones that we put like, shooting on Humvees and stuff. And I was like, holy shit. He had, I think, is it 3? I think they only had 3 2.75 rockets. And he shot 2 of those, if I remember correctly, maybe 3, and peeled off. And it kept popping up, if anything presented itself, take a shot at it. And maybe a couple minutes later, an Apache came out of the river. Like he was screaming up the river, popped up off the river, came right over, waved at me. I could see the rivets in the bottom of the helicopter. And I was kind of like, let me get a hold of one of them tires. Get me out of here, dude. And sure enough, around the corner rolls in a striker. It's the Rangers. And I'm like, oh, cool. The Rangers, they only do one thing. I'm like, yeah. I had 9 9mm rounds and 14 5.56 rounds left.
9mm rounds and how many 5.56?
9 9mm and 14 5.56 rounds left.
Holy shit, man.
I had thrown my 3 frag grenades and his 2 frag grenades and 2 PDMs. One of the frag grenades I literally threw in the room I was in.
How many
I was
combatants
done.
did you face that day?
They picked up 26 bodies.
Jesus, man.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
And it
sounds
definitely,
like it.
remember I said I didn't realize I was immortal until Ben died? That day made me think I was immortal. You survive something like that, you know, it was like, and it's all wrong. I should have, but I was young and dumb, right? I mean, just young and cocky. And I mean, I just spent, you know, almost 2 hours fighting by myself and made it through it.